When we talk about this estate being established on the 13th of July 1685, we don't mean that the land was discovered by Simon van der Stal during that, the same period. The land was discovered slightly a little bit earlier than that, but the deed of the land was signed on the 13th of July 1685, which made it officially and legally the property of Simon van der Stal. But he discovered the land way before that. Simon van der Stal arrived in the Cape Colony in 1679. That was 6 years before this land or this estate was established. Now, Simon did something extremely amazing and very important when it comes to the search of the perfect land. He did what we call a soil analysis. All the way from Table Bay to Muizenberg, he did a soil analysis to find the best terroir. After the result of the soil analysis was sent back to him, oh, by the way, what he did was he sent a group of quite a lot of his subordinates to collect samples of soil. They collected samples of soil and they analyzed those samples of soil, and they found out that this region, when I talk about the region, I'm not specifically talking about where you are. I'm talking about the region as Constantia, which was all his property. So the size that was under Simon van der Stal was 700 hectares. So which was 760. And according to one of the wine writers by the name of Jose Bachmann, he compared the size of the estate which was under Simon van der Stal to Amsterdam. So it was exactly the same size as Amsterdam. That was the estate that he had. And he died in 1712. 2 years later, 1714, the estate was subdivided, which led to the size that we have currently, which is only 175 acres. So the estate was originally subdivided in three major parts were subdivided, and two became one region, and the bigger one is currently a residential area. So the estate stretched all the way to Plumstead, Witteboma, and Steenberg, and the Weinberg, a bit of Out Bay as well. So the estate was massive, but we only have 175 out of the 760 that existed. And out of the 175, 90% is solely used for the growth of the grape. Only a 10% is under buildings and construction. But the remaining 90% is solely used for the growth of the grape. This estate is also sitting at the back slope of Table Mountain. And it's on the peninsula, situated between the two different oceans. We got the Indian on one side and the Atlantic on the other side. This region is also known as a cooler region, with the maritime influence from the two oceans. We have 9 different types of soil on this estate, which is unheard of. 9 different types of soil, and also this estate is in the valley, and which also gives our elevation between 60 meters above sea level to 280 meters above sea level. And based on that as well, we have land at different altitude. And we also plant our grape. We also plant our blocks of grapes depending on the different altitude as well. For instance, the Sauvignon Blanc, we have one of the biggest blocks of the Sauvignon Blanc at the highest altitude on the estate, which is 280 meters above sea level. And a little bit lower than that, 60, somewhere around between 50 and 60 on the clay part of the estate. That's where we grow our Merlot. And so everything is very calculated. So from day one to this day, this estate has been driven by one force only, which is quality. So quality has been the driving force of Groot Constantia from day one to this very day. And it's because of quality that we only use the best oak. That's why we import our oak from France. So all the barrels that you see over here, these are all French oak barrels, and they are all imported from France. And each barrels that you see cost somewhere between 700 to 1,000 euro each. And empty barrels, as you see it over there. So it's they are very expensive, but that's what you do for quality. And the barrels that you see as the norms at Groot Constantia, we only use light or medium toaster French oak barrels. The toasting process plays a major role in the final product, which is the wine in the bottle. Wine has two different notes. There's what we call as primary notes, and those notes comes from the grape. But there's a secondary note which comes from the barrel. So the toasting process will release new aromas in the wood. And those aromas in the wood, when wine goes through this process known as maturations, those aromas will now be released into the wine as it ages. And that's how you get to pick notes of secondary notes such as your dark chocolates, smokiness, your spicy notes, such as your nutmeg, hazelnuts, vanilla. All those notes are secondary notes that are impacted into the wine through maturation process. So what happened during toasting process? The word toasting shouldn't confuse you because it's something that you are used to. Many of you actually do that almost every single day in the morning, where especially for you guys that like to toast your bread. So what you do, you take your 2 slices or 4 slices depending on what type of toaster you have. You put them in your toaster, few seconds later, they popped out. So you can do it either light, medium, or heavy. Myself, I like my bread toasted heavy. Some of you prefer your bread toasted medium. There's even those of you prefer your bread toasted lightly. Now, those toasting process release those new aromas that I mentioned. But what the cooper does is before he puts all the parts of the barrels together, he first do the side of the barrels. And the barrel is now left more like a tube without the head. The head, you can actually see it clearly over here. So these are the round parts, the round one piece that you see, which is called the head of the barrel. That is the last part the cooper will put together. Because if he puts that part, which means there's nothing else the cooper can do inside the barrel. So that will actually go last. Now what the cooper will do, before these 2 parts are put, he takes the barrels, first he will set fire. There are those who use gas fires, there are those who use a piece of wood, depending on what character they want to impact into the wine. There are those who also use coffee beans. So on the fire they'll throw some coffee beans and they'll toast it with those coffee beans as well. So what you do, as soon as it set fire, it takes now the barrels and put it over the fire. And he started toasting it. Like I mentioned already, he can either toast it light, or he can toast it heavy, or toast it, a medium, depending on the request of the winemakers. Because when you order your barrels, you specify all those things. I want my barrel medium toast, I want it light toast, or I want it heavy toast. So now the toasting, besides releasing the aromas that I mentioned, the toasting also does something very important, which is what we also call caramelization. So the fire will caramelize the wood, which simply means taking out the natural sugar in the wood and bring it forth. So that happens during toasting process. Now, you can see at Groot Constantia, we only use light or medium toast. The reason why we use light and medium toast, it's because heavy toast has the tendency to mask the flavor of your grape. Do we get that?
Yeah.
So, the light toast, we will only add a subtle hint of oak without masking the flavor of the grape, because that's what you want. You want to be able to taste take a sip of a Merlot and get that flavor of the grape as well, with a hint of oak. You don't want the oak to overpower your wine. I don't know if it was Galilei or one of the philosophers back in those days said, if it's an oak that I'm looking for, I'm gonna take a piece of wood and chew. But if it's one that I'm looking for, I just wanna drink my wine and enjoy the flavor of the grapes. So we wanna give you that. We wanna give you the opportunity to still test the flavor of your grapes. Are we clear on that? Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
How long does the oak keep releasing the flavours for in the wine?
Repeat that again.
How long would an oak barrel keep releasing those flavours for? How long does it last, the barrel?
Quite a long time. Quite a long time. But what you have to remember is that the first use, so the first use will impact more oak than the second, the third, and the fourth.
You have to make a different wine? Is there a different taste?
Now what we do, we use we actually use the oak mostly 4 times. But there are exceptions to the rules. We sometimes use it for the 5th time and the 4th time. So the impact of the oak on the wine kind of reduces. The first one, the oak will be more prominent, than it will be on the 2nd time, and the 3rd time, and the 4th time. Now, for me to help you understand what I'm talking about, think of a tea bag. You take 4 cups of boiling water with 1 tea bag. I've done it. So you take the first tea, the new tea bag in the first cup. 2 minutes you take it out, put it in the second. 2 minutes you take it out, 3rd and 4th. And when you look at the color of those 4 different cups of tea, it will be different. Even the taste. The first one will be more tannic because it was a brand new tea bag. The second one will reduce a little bit and so on. So literally that's what happens. So for instance, if you use a barrel for a pinotage, it will remain continuously, it will be used for pinotage. So unless if someone who makes spirits, like your brandies, your whiskey, they can also buy barrels, such a barrel and reuse it for the spirit.
So I take it, by the time you've got to the fourth use of the barrel, the wine's cheaper? 'Cause it's
No.
No.
It's not. It's never like that. I'll tell you why. Because every single vintage, it's never a one barrel. It's always a split. Every single vintage is a split. For instance, our Governor's Reserve, 85% will be new oak. Now the 15% will be a split. Percentage in second use and percentage in third use. So every single vintage is always a split. There will be a 75% in new oak. The 25% will be split in the second use, third use, and maybe fourth use, then blend together.
So it's matured in the oak and then put it back
Do you
together.
get what I'm saying? So it's always a split. So it's always a split. So you can even see it over here. And a single vintage normally splits between all four types of barrels before being blended when maturation is completed.
And separated and put it back together.
Yes. Yes.
So is it the amount of bands on the barrel that determines if it's a light or dark?
You're speaking English. Your accent is a little bit, so if you can speak a bit loud so I can...
The amount of bands on the barrel, because there's different amounts. Is that,
You're talking about the oops?
yeah? Is
No,
that,
it doesn't really. I think it's also to do with a signature of a specific, cooper.
right.
Yeah.
I think it's like a light toaster and medium
Yes,
toaster.
yes. And also just what they prefer. And also remember that contributes to the durability of the barrels. So yeah, that could be just a signature of a different cooperage, or also to make sure that the barrels is more secured.
Yeah.
Because that's the reason of those. So if we call them the hoops. So they are there to actually keep your barrels together. They play no impact on the taste of your wine.
No.
They just they just keep your barrels together. So you can see you got some they'll have more than 6. Some will just have about 5. So there'll be 2 and 1 in the middle, and so on. So just different. Okay, guys, come with me.
Myślałem, że mi ręka odpadnie, ale po prostu jednak ja bardzo ciekawie opowiada. Podoba?
Bardzo, bardzo.
Też.
Okay, are we all here? Good. Have you drank red wine before?
Red, yes.
Where are you from?
From Poland.
From Poland.
But I prefer actually white wine.
You prefer
but
white
it's
wine?
my preference.
Of
so-
course, of course. I mean, the subject of wine is very subjective.
Yes.
It's very subjective. It's something that's to do with what you want. You know, if I may use this opportunity to let you guys know, it's only an amazing wine for you.
Okay.
So it will be a big mistake. That's one of the things we see in couples, especially, where one is trying to convince the others that what they're drinking is actually the best. So it's you could be together, twins from the same father, same mothers, but your palate are very subjective. So one will prefer what the other might not prefer. So I like that. That's really your preference, which is actually, that's how it should be. The French says, le goût et la couleur ne se discutent pas. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. So, le goût et la couleur ne se discutent pas. So if I may translate that in English, it simply means color and taste should never be argued. So if you prefer purple, that's a good color for you. And you prefer black, don't try and tell me, oh no, purple is actually a beautiful color. Yes, for you. You know, it's not necessarily for me. So once we understand that, we're gonna live a very easy, you just taste the wine and enjoy it. You know, because you're not gonna put pressure. And that's why sometimes I prefer letting people find the different character and component of wine for themselves. I will just give you a guideline. You know, when they say this particular wine will go very well with your fish, that's not a definitive. That's just a guideline.
Why is there so much difference in price?
Huh?
So why is there so much difference in price to a high price wine to a cheap wine? Personal preference.
It's process. It's process. Let me give you an example. That's the reason why you're standing right over here. This what is behind you, it's called a maceration tank. This is where the grapes, skins, and the juice are left together. So this is the process of your red wine. It takes much longer than you produce your white. You totally agree with me. Since you were born to this day, there's one word which remains the same. Most people have been saying, time is what?
Money.
There you go. So we all know time is money. So the longer a process takes, the more expensive it will be for me. Because for that process to be maintained, I need the people, I need the labor. So I need to pay for people to actually be there throughout the process. Electricity and all those kind of things comes in play. So that's what gives the price of whatever, the final product. So with the wine, the white, what we do is you harvest the grape, goes through the receiving bin, straight into the tank, into the press. They are pressed, and the juice goes in for fermentation. And once fermentation is done, it's bottled, you keep it for a while, then you release it for consumption. But with your red, it takes much longer than that. First of all, it does not go into the press. It comes into the maceration tank, where the skin and the juice are left together, and that's when the color is formed. The color doesn't reside inside the grape. The color of your red wine resides solely in the skin. So the longer the mast and the skin are left together, the deeper the color takes. So this process alone takes a long time. Throughout this process, every single day, 3 times a day, there is a process we call pump over. There will be someone standing right on top here, right over there, with a pump, pumping the wine out of the tank, back into the tank. Simply because when you leave it alone, the skin always have that tendency to float. And as it floats above, it creates what we call a cap. Now that cap makes it impossible for the wine at the bottom to actually absorb and get contact with the skin, and so on. So now that person has to do it for 30 minutes every session. And the last session of the day, I think it takes place, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's around between either 10 or 11 p.m. at night. So which means there has to be someone here over time who has to come and do that. Throughout the whole time, these wines are in the tank. So that alone shows you how much work it is into producing a red wine. And these are part of the things that contribute to the price. So again, one, it's a personal preference. There is what I call a universal quality, something that almost everyone will agree upon. You know, so like, oh, this is a smooth wine. You know, this is a smooth wine. But it's only someone who has drank wine before. But when you get a beer person, it's not for me. But you look at the price of the bottle, it's like 1,000 euro. And you give it to someone like, this is not my style. You see, but when you give it to someone, that's why I also try and tell people, there is no right and wrong way to enjoy wine. There is no right and wrong way to enjoy wine. But there is a right and a wrong way to appreciate wine. When it comes to appreciation, you don't put your red wine in the fridge. You don't put ice in your red wine. You know, you don't mix it with Coca-Cola like you know, they call it Catempa. You know what I'm talking about? They call it Catempa or something. I think it's from Portugal. You know, Catempa, where you mix Coca-Cola in your wine. You know, so you don't do that when it comes to appreciation. But when it comes to enjoying, if that's what you enjoy, go ahead. If you want to fill your whole glass with ice, go ahead. Because that's now become a matter of personal preference. But appreciation is a completely different thing. There you need to follow the guideline, you know, so that you can appreciate that particular wine. But enjoying, it doesn't matter. You can even hold the glass, your wine glass with your fingers on the cup there. It doesn't matter. You can warm it up with the palm of, doesn't really matter. You know, if that's okay for you. But when it comes to appreciation, please hold it on the stand. You know, do not warm up your glass. Just hold it on the stand. Don't hold it like, you know, it's a piece of orange or something, you know. I see people holding a glass like that, you know. So appreciation and enjoyment are completely two different things. So you shouldn't let someone make you feel bad because this is how you enjoy it. You know, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't learn to appreciate it. Go ahead.
You know, the climates in our different regions also determine how the wine
Yes, ma'am.
temperature. Like I come from a very, very, very hot place.
Would that be Nigeria? Okay, I knew that.
So how?
Because when you said very, very, I can only think of Nigeria.
Exactly.
You know,
so you know the temperature here. When you
Yes.
leave your wine bottle outside,
Yeah.
you feel
Yes.
you know it's chill, the room temperature and everything.
Yeah.
But over there.
But you see now there is a misunderstanding of the word room temperature. So when we talk about room temperature, we don't mean the temperature in your room, that's room temperature. No, there are numbers to the room temperature.
temperature.
So which will see
piwnica
somewhere between
stosela?
16 to 18 degrees.
Możliwe?
That's your
Jeśli
correct
chodzi,
room
to
temperature.
już właśnie solar, to tak.
So if you cannot get it in your environment, stick it in the fridge. When you get that correct temperature for the reds, most people will tell you, most wine experts will tell you for the reds, put it in 30 minutes before consumption and take it out. But there are whites that are consumed too cold. What you should do, take it out 30 minutes before consumption for your white. So you can actually, there are people who prefer their white at 5 degrees Celsius, which is too cold for me, because that restrains the character of your wines. You know, so 8, 9, for me that's perfect for your white.
What about letting it breathe?
Oh yes, of course.
For how long?
The longer you can, the better. Breathing, the longer you can, the better. Especially if you don't have a decanter. So the longer you can, the better. But if you have a decanter, yes, decant your wine and keep it in a decanter maybe for I would say 10, 15, 20 minutes, then pour your wine. Yes, but decanting, the longer you can, the better.
Do you produce for other winemakers or you have your own brand?
We don't produce for anyone else.
For your own.
That's us. Groot Constantia, this is us.
So that's the name of your bottle.
Everyone. That's only us. We do not produce for anyone else. We are at a
No
stage.
to ja nie wiem, czy nie było właśnie w polskich sklepach ten Groot Constantia.
Nie mam pojęcia. Trzeba będzie zerknąć gdzieś któregoś razu w jakimś takim...
Plus, we do not use, how do you call it? We do not use screw cap. None of our wine has a screw cap. We only use cork, and the cork is imported from Portugal. So none of our wine has a screw cap, and it's gonna be like that for a very, very, very long time.
Is that an important difference? Is that an important difference for the bottle?
Oh yes, sir, it does. No even question asked about that. Very much, yes, sir.
Sorry, what
Where you from?
France.
Okay.
What does it mean struck it?
What does it mean?
I don't struck it. You just
Screw cap. Le bouchon. Le bouchon. On utilise que le liège. Donc, nous n'utilisons pas de bouchon, nous utilisons seulement le liège. So, seulement le liège qu'on utilise ici. Il n'y a pas de bouchon. Je vous en prie. Say that again. That's very debatable. That's debatable. But I'll prefer mine with a dent in the bottom. We are very exclusive. Yeah, in Africa, there's not something that's
Założam, że kółeczko zrobiliśmy.
No. Dobra, czyli
By the way, this rosé is a blend of 7 different
to
grapes.
jest czekolady, tak?
So we got 7 grapes in this rosé. Should I start so we know one for you, man? Okay. And for you, sir, what would you like? You want to do Governance Reserve? I know I said there is no right and wrong way to enjoy, but there is a right and wrong way to appreciate. Don't you want to finish with Governance Reserve? I would advise you finish with Governance. Yes. It's a beautiful wine, but a little bit heavy to start with.